Today, we're going to talk about 10 things you probably don't know but should. And then we're going to take a deep dive on 3 of those things. This is Unbridled with Jenna Davis. Antibiotics can disrupt your microbiome for up to 2 years. Every single round of antibiotics can significantly alter gut flora, sometimes permanently reducing the microbial diversity. This has been linked to increased risk of asthma, eczema, autoimmune disease, and mental health issues. Melatonin is a hormone, not a supplement. It's often given to children as if it were a vitamin, but melatonin regulates circadian rhythm, puberty timing, immune function, and mitochondrial activity. Chronic supplementation can disrupt the body's ability to make it naturally. Artificial fragrances are legally protected trade secrets, not tested for safety. Companies aren't required to disclose the chemicals in fragrances. Many contain known endocrine disruptors, carcinogens, and allergens, and they're absorbed through the skin and inhaled daily. Cortisol suppression from cortisone creams affect the whole body. Topical steroid creams don't just work locally. With chronic or widespread use, they can absorb systemically, disrupting hormones, thinning the skin, and impacting adrenal function. NSAIDs like ibuprofen inhibit healing. Ibuprofen may relieve pain short-term, but it also slows tissue repair, increases gut permeability, and can damage the kidneys when used long-term. Tylenol, acetaminophen, depletes glutathione. Glutathione is your body's master antioxidant. It's critical for detox, brain health, immune function. Tylenol rapidly depletes it, especially in children, which can weaken the body's defense against oxidative stress. Cholesterol is essential for hormone and brain function. Cholesterol is not your enemy. It's the precursor to every steroid hormone, estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, and it makes up a major part of your brain. Lower cholesterol has been linked to depression and memory loss and hormone issues. Fever is not a disease. It's your body's built-in defense system. Fever activates immune cells, slows pathogen replication, and helps the body detox. Suppressing a mild to moderate fever can delay healing and increase recovery time. Most of your serotonin is made in your gut, not your brain. About 90% of your serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitter, is produced in the intestinal tract, not your brain. This is why gut health is so deeply tied to mood and mental wellness. Low stomach acid is more common than high, and they cause the same symptoms. Heartburn, bloating, reflux are often blamed on too much acid, but most people actually suffer from too little. And this leads to poor digestion, nutrient deficiencies, and bacterial overgrowth, yet antacids are overprescribed. So, before we jump into my top 3 picks, I want to say this. Don't just take my word for anything you're hearing today or later in the episode. If something you hear today challenges your thinking or makes you raise an eyebrow, good. That's the point. And I encourage you to research and dig deeper and follow the trail yourself, especially on the ones that feel the most uncomfortable, because sometimes the hardest truths to look at are the ones we need to see the most. Now, I want to take you deeper because out of the 10 things that I've shared today, a few of those truths hit hard, especially for me. And most of us have these things in our home that I'm about to talk about. A lot of you probably use them regularly. They're easy to reach for, they're socially accepted, but they're interrupting your body's ability to heal. And so let's talk about that. And we're going to start with Tylenol. Tylenol, also known as acetaminophen, also known as a biological Trojan horse. It's probably what your parents gave you when you had a fever. The one your pediatrician said was safe. The one you grabbed during pregnancy because your OBGYN told you that that's the best one for you to take while you're pregnant. It seems harmless, and you've probably never questioned it before. But let's talk about that a little bit, because Tylenol was first synthesized in the late 1800s, but didn't hit mainstream medicine shelves until 1950s. It was marketed as the safe alternative to aspirin, especially for kids. And by the 1980s, it was everywhere, and pediatricians pushed it hard. OBGYNs recommended it, hospitals handed it out like candy. It became the default drug for pain, fever, headaches, teething, cramps, even post-vaccine care. The brand had one powerful selling point. It won't hurt your stomach like aspirin, and that is true. And people bought it hard. But here's what they didn't tell you. Tylenol works by blocking an enzyme in the brain called the COX-3, which is linked to pain and temperature regulation. And that's why your fever drops and your headache fades. But here's the hidden catch. It's not actually fixing anything. It's just masking symptoms and shutting off the messenger. And in the process, it's draining your body of the most powerful defense system it has, which is the glutathione. It's the master antioxidant, the detox warrior. It's your cellular repair crew, and Tylenol wipes it out fast. Every time you take a Tylenol, your liver has to process it using something called CYP450 enzymes, which convert an acetaminophen into a highly toxic byproduct called NAPQI, and it is a villain. Under normal circumstances, though, your body neutralizes NAPQI with glutathione. But when your glutathione is low or when you take Tylenol repeatedly, NAPQI builds up and starts attacking your liver cells. In adults, regular Tylenol use impairs liver function, lowers your threshold for toxic exposure, and worsens oxidative stress. It can deplete glutathione over time, especially dangerous if you're already exposed to mold, stress, alcohol, or processed foods. Who isn't, right? Even safe doses can be risky if you're chronically depleted, nutrient deficient, or taking other meds. And let's be clear, an acetaminophen overdose is the #1 cause of acute liver failure in the United States. Not heroin, not alcohol. Short-term use may offer temporary relief, but always at a biochemical cost. And long-term or repeated use contributes to, well, all kinds of issues. Detox fatigue, increased sensitivity to chemicals, brain fog, mood instability, hormonal imbalances, and a weakened ability to fight inflammation naturally. Just one pill adds up because you're not just numbing the pain, you're interrupting your body's own repair system. Okay, so let's talk about Tylenol in children. And this is where, to me, it gets heavy because children, especially infants, have very limited glutathione reserves. And when we give them Tylenol for teething or fever or after vaccinations, we're unintentionally putting stress on the liver that isn't ready for stress. And we're stripping away a defense system that's still developing. So let's talk about fever because that's what most people tend to use Tylenol for. And I don't want to talk about fever out of fear, but from truth. Because if you're a parent, you know the moment the forehead feels hot or the thermometer starts to climb, the worry creeps in. Do I need Tylenol? Should I call the doctor? Is this dangerous? But what if I told you that fever isn't the enemy? It's the body's brilliant repair system in motion. It's not part of the problem. It's a strategic immune response. Fever is part of the solution. When your child is exposed to a virus or a bacteria, the immune system launches a defense. And one of its first moves, raise the body temperature. Why? Because most pathogens like viruses, bacteria, parasites, they can't thrive at higher body temps. Fever literally turns up the heat to kill the invader. And what does fever do in the body? Well, it increases white blood cell activity. It speeds up antibody production. It enhances detoxification. It suppresses viral and bacterial replication. It also signals to the body and the brain, focus all energy on healing. Fever is the red alert system that clears out the problem. Fever is fixing things. And suppressing that process is like calling the firefighters to a burning house and then turning off the water hoses. When you give Tylenol or ibuprofen at the first sign of a fever, you may prolong the illness by interfering with immune efficiency. You may blunt the body's natural detox mechanisms, and you often deplete glutathione, especially with Tylenol. You also teach the body that discomfort equals danger, when in truth, it often equals transformation, fixing, and healing. And here's the kicker. Studies show that fever suppression doesn't prevent seizures, which is the most common fear. In fact, it may increase the risk by disrupting the body's rhythm of resolution. Okay, so fevers in children, what is normal and what's not? Fever is defined by anything over 100 degrees, 100.4. Fever under 104 are generally safe and considered self-limiting in children. And febrile seizures, while scary, are rarely dangerous or damaging. But what matters more than the number on the thermometer is your child's behavior. Are they responsive, hydrated, breathing comfortably? Red flags, which you should always seek care, is fever in a baby under 3 months, difficulty breathing, unresponsiveness, or dehydration or refusal to drink. But for the average run-of-the-mill fever up to 104 degrees, trust the process. Support the system. Stay close and stay calm. Keep them hydrated and let them sleep, because that's when the immune system really goes to work. And also stay grounded, because your energy is their energy. So fever is not something to fight. It's the body doing its job. So lean into it and trust it. Remind yourself, pain and fever are messengers. They're not random. They're telling you something is off and your body is responding. In saying all this, I also want to say Tylenol isn't evil. Of course, it definitely has its place, and I've used it, and I'm sure I will use it if needed in the future. But it was never meant to be the first line of defense every time something hurts, or to reduce your kid's fever and send them to school. It was meant for occasional acute use in carefully chosen scenarios. We've been conditioned to reach for it to make our lives easier, but there's real consequences for that. So the next time you reach for Tylenol, remember what's behind the curtain. Again, this isn't about fear, it's about informed choices. Your body doesn't need to be silenced, it needs to be supported. And when you understand that, you don't reach for the quick fix. The fever is not your enemy, it's your body's defense system. Listen to your body and support it. That's the medicine, that's the wisdom. And that's what true healing looks like. Instead of silencing the signal, you can support your body's natural healing. Okay, so let's move on to ibuprofen. Ibuprofen used to be my best friend a long time ago. The thought of an 800 milligram Motrin brought me comfort. I would take it for everything. I would pop one just in case. For some people, it starts with headache, a pulled muscle, cramps, a fever too, or maybe just the classic, the baby's teething, give them some Motrin or ibuprofen, whether it's Motrin, Advil, or a generic form. It gets handed out like candy too. We call it safe, fast, effective, but what if I told you that it's not just muting the pain? It can be damaging your body and interrupting or even preventing your body's healing at the root, at the source, at the cellular level. So let's go there. Ibuprofen is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug called an NSAID. It works by blocking enzymes called COX-1 and COX-2, which your body uses to produce prostaglandins. They are the chemical messengers involved in pain and inflammation, yes, but also tissue repair, gut lining protection, fever regulation, and blood flow. So when you shut them down with ibuprofen, it may relieve the symptoms, but you're also shutting down the body's natural repair crew, and it increases gut permeability, like leaky gut, because the gut lining protection signals, they're muted. NSAIDs like ibuprofen damage the intestinal lining even at the normal recommended doses. This leads to gut inflammation, food sensitivities, autoimmune flare-ups, bloating, fatigue, mood changes, and the kicker, it can happen within just a few days of use. It also increases cardiovascular risk. Ibuprofen disrupts the balance of messengers that regulate blood flow and clotting. So long-term or high-dose use is linked to increased blood pressure, greater risk of stroke and heart attack, kidney stress, and water retention. And not just in the elderly, in teens, in healthy adults, and especially in people using it chronically for pain or inflammation. Like I mentioned earlier, pain and fever aren't random, they are messengers. Your body's saying something's off and I'm responding. Ibuprofen tells the body to shut up. So instead of resolving the issue, you push, and the inflammation goes deeper. It masks symptoms while the root cause festers. You disconnect from the body's intuitive language, and that's not healing, that's suppression. In children, Motrin is often given for fevers, ear infections, teething, post-vaccine fevers, cold, flu, sore throats. But what it does in a child's developing system, it disrupts the gut integrity. Hello, food allergies and eczema. Lowers glutathione by creating oxidative stress. So Tylenol depletes glutathione during its detoxification in the liver, and Motrin contributes to glutathione depletion by increasing oxidative stress and disrupting the detoxification pathways. It affects long-term microbiome composition by muting the gut's protective signals. And yet it too is one of the first things we reach for without question. Ibuprofen can be especially risky during viral illnesses because it can increase complications alongside of alcohol or other medications because of the liver gut damage, and in children under 6 months. If used daily for chronic pain, it can really cause issues. And I'm going to get real specific for me, and this is what led me down the rabbit hole to begin with about ibuprofen. As an equestrian athlete and a coach for other athletes, muscle issues, tendons, and soft tissue issues and injuries, they happen. And when I learned that the absolute go-to formula instructed by most physicians actually delay proper healing and even create chronic conditions, I was floored. Ibuprofen delays and prevents full muscle and tissue repair. Study after studies show this. They show that ibuprofen slows healing of tendons, ligaments, and connective tissue. It inhibits muscle regeneration after injury or even just exercise. It reduces the inflammation response needed for healing. This means your body may feel better, but it's actually taking longer to recover and never fully repairs. So you twist an ankle or you pull a muscle, tear a tendon, you're in pain, the swelling starts, you go to urgent care or your doctor's office, and without hesitation, you're told, rest, ice, compress, elevate. It's RICE. It's what they tell you to do. And of course, take ibuprofen for the inflammation. But here's what they don't tell you. The inflammation is part of the healing. The ibuprofen delays tissue regeneration. The fibers never reconnect the same way again because of this protocol. That the tissue stays weaker, thinner, slower, and more vulnerable, and they keep recommending it anyway. Why? Well, because doctors aren't trained to focus on, doctors are trained to focus on pain reduction, not healing integrity. Medical training emphasizes symptom control, and that's what we want when we go. We want our symptoms controlled. So when you come in with swelling and discomfort, their job is to reduce the pain, reduce visible inflammation, get you back to functioning. They're typically not taught to consider the purpose of the inflammation, the collagen remodeling phase of healing, or the long-term tensile strength of your tissue. So they treat what they can see, not what's rebuilding beneath the surface. Anti-inflammatories give the illusion of improvement. Ibuprofen and other NSAIDs block COX enzymes, stopping what triggers the pain and inflammation, not fixing it. Swelling goes down, pain decreases, and you feel better, but that's not healing. That's biochemical anesthesia. Your body is still torn, still raw, and still trying to clean, rebuild, and regenerate. And now you're walking on it or thinking it's fine, and it's not fine. Inflammation is a required phase of healing. The injury healing process goes like this. Okay, Inflammation is phase one, and that you need inflammation like from the start to like 3 days. Immune cells clean up the debris and signal for repair. The second stage is proliferation phase, which is 4 to 21 days. New tissue starts forming. Remodeling phase, up to a year, collagen fibers realign and strengthen. And when you shut down the inflammation phase, the very first phase with NSAIDs, you delay or blunt your immune activation. You impair new tissue formation, you reduce blood flow and oxygen to the area. The body ends up laying down weaker collagen, type 3 and type 2, instead of type 1. You increase the risk of chronic instability and re-injury. Studies show this. Studies show tendons and ligaments healed with NSAIDs are more prone to rupture and re-injure. It reduces the elasticity long term. So why do doctors still do this? Because it's fast, easy, and it's expected. It's what we expect. And most doctors want to offer relief that satisfies the patient. They don't have time to explain biological healing, or maybe they don't understand it themselves. I don't know. But they aren't trained in regenerative physiology or functional movement, and they're following outdated, insurance-approved protocols still rooted in rice, a model that's been disemboweled even by the original creator. And the pharmaceutical reps, they still market NSAIDs as the first line of defense because it's big money and it's low resistance. So what happens when you repeatedly medicate instead of heal? Ligaments never fully recover to their original strength. Collagen fibers don't realign properly. Scar tissue builds up. Chronic instability sets in. And eventually, the same injury comes back, typically only worse. And that's why so many athletes get re-injured, not because their body's broken, because their healing was interrupted. So what to do instead? Okay, support the phases. Don't block them. Inflammation phase. It's okay. From onset of injury to within 3 days, use gentle movement, not full movement. Support the lymph with light massage. Apply castor oil, arnica, magnesium. Use cold only for comfort, not to stop the process. Inflammation in the first few days is necessary for healing. Okay, the tissue repair phase from 4 to 21 days. Use collagen, vitamin C, silica, and drink bone broth. Light load-bearing activity helps fibers realign. Gentle fascia work, red light therapy, or PMF treatments can help in the remodeling phase. Full range and restoration of motion. Integrate stability and balance. Do little exercises to support that. Support movement instead of medicine. So the bottom line is, just like fevers, you don't need to fear inflammation after an injury. You just need to understand it, because when you suppress the very system that's trying to heal you and repair you, you don't just lose the swelling, you lose the capacity to fully heal. And healing takes time, and that sucks, but it takes time, and it's not always convenient. But what you rebuild right the first time doesn't need to be fixed again later. So that's my deep dive on Tylenol and ibuprofen. Now, let's talk about a remedy especially used here in the South, where bug bites are just part of life. Let's unpack what happens when cortisone cream becomes the go-to every time a mosquito bites, a fire ant stings, or a no-see-um leaves a mark on you that needs to go away. For whatever skin irritations or itch you may have, people typically grab the cortisone cream. And here's what's really going on with that. That tiny tube might feel like a quick fix for the itchy red bumps, and it will. It will reduce the inflammation and the swelling and stop the itch in the moment. But with repeated use, it can create a long-term effect, skin damage, immune disruption, even if the areas that you're treating are small. You're training your body to mute its own signals. Bug bites equal immune response. Your body recognizes foreign proteins from the insect saliva or the venom and sends histamines and inflammatory cells to the area to protect, neutralize, and heal. Every time you suppress that response with a steroid, you're interrupting the body's communication systems. You're overriding natural detox and resolution. You're teaching your body's symptoms: don't feel, don't respond, don't process. Block out the signal. And over time, that weakens the immune clarity and builds reliance on suppression. Also, the cumulative skin damage. Even if you're applying it to just one little bite or doing that daily, weekly, or over the summer months, it can cause thinning of the skin, the atrophy, pigmentation changes, delayed wound healing, steroid-induced rosacea, or contact dermatitis. Skin becomes more sensitive, not less. Even with consistent use of low-grade, over-the-counter cream, systemic absorption is real, especially in kids. Even small doses can enter the bloodstream, especially when applied repeatedly or on broken or scratched skin, on thin skin like wrists, ankles, or eyelids. In children with higher surface area to body weight ratios, over time, this can lead to adrenal suppression, behavioral or sleep changes, hormone imbalance, not from one use, but from repetition. You're not building resilience. The body builds immune memory through minor exposures. Bug bites, even the annoying ones, are part of that education. And when we suppress it, when we suppress every itch, sting, swelling with a cream, we prevent the body from learning and adapting and resolving on its own. So what's the alternative? Natural bug bite reliefs that work for me, they're safe, effective ways to treat bug bites without training the body to disconnect. Clean and calm the skin. Witch hazel is an anti-inflammatory, it's cooling. Raw honey or manuka honey soothes and heals. Bentonite clay, I love bentonite clay or baking soda paste, draws out venom and calms itching. Cold compresses or ice cubes, temporarily it will restrict the vasculation and makes it less itchy. My personal go-to, I use 10 ppm colloidal silver spray on the skin, followed by castor oil. It feels good, and typically the bite is gone within hours. Now, colloidal silver is an antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. It stops the bite area from becoming infected without wiping out your skin's natural microbiome like harsh antibiotic creams, and castor oil draws out heat, venom. It's thick. It's sticky texture, and it acts like a natural poultice, pulling out toxins while locking in moisture. On rare occasion, if that doesn't work, I'll use bentonite clay with apple cider vinegar, and I'll make a mask over the area, and then I'll follow it up with castor oil or some aloe vera gel or tea tree oil. And apple cider vinegar by itself, you can dab that on, and it balances the pH and reduces the histamine reaction. Tapping light pressure on the area can also calm the histamine loop. I think it's important to teach kids to breathe through the sensations that builds resilience. Encourage them to notice what's going on, not to panic, and let them know it's part of their body's learning. And teach them to support their body, not shut it down. The bottom line is bug bites suck. Itching sucks, but cortisone creams shouldn't be your reflex. Save them for the rare extreme reactions. And even then, use them sparingly, intentionally, and short term, because every time you suppress a bite, you're not just silencing the itch, you're silencing the body's brilliant alarm bells and your body's natural healing process. And over time, that disconnect weakens your natural responses to bigger threats. Okay, Tylenol, ibuprofen, and cortisone creams. Those were supposed to help. That's what we've been told. The tiny bottles, the little tubes, a dab here, a dose there, safe, normal, and necessary. But here's the truth that doesn't fit on the labels. They don't solve the problem. They silence the signal. They disconnect you from the wisdom of your own body. We were taught that relief is healing, that if a symptom disappears, everything is fine. But now we know that's not true. That's not the same as resolution. The everyday helpers we're told are harmless don't help the body heal. They just mute the message. Somewhere along the lines, they stopped teaching us how to support the body. Instead, we've been taught how to manage symptoms, but we're not meant to be managed. We're meant to regenerate and heal. And healing doesn't start with silencing your body's ability to heal itself. It starts when you stop asking, how do I make this go away? And start asking, how can I support my body so it can do its job? That's where healing begins. That is where your power lives. And no, you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to stay curious and stay present and stay open to the idea that your body already knows how to heal. And once you truly remember that, you get your power back. Until next time, be curious and stay unbridled. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay unbridled.